Thanksgiving holiday. Pastor Rain opened up her house. We all got a chance to go and eat. Grandma cooked. A lot of people put it in. I got to see all the family, all the relatives, and all my friends. Very next day, we decided we're going to go to the movies to see a movie. Good holiday Christian film called Queen and Slim. So, if you guys have never seen this holiday film, it's not like Home Alone or The Grinch. It's a little bit different because it's a holiday movie. And there's really nothing Christian about the movie except for one Christian that's in it named Slim. Now, it's a Bonnie and Clyde tale where a black couple who are on their first date. This is their very first date, and they don't hit it off, by the way, at the first date. They're driving, and he's getting ready to drop her off because he's done with her, and she's pretty much done with him. They get pulled over by this evil cop who pulls them out, tries to kill him. They end up killing him. I don't want to give too much away because some of y'all haven't seen the movie. Right. But it's a Bonnie and Clyde type of story. And if you've seen any kind of Bonnie and Clyde stories, they never end well. Ever. And you root for them the whole way. I can't tell you how the movie ends. Right? In fact, spoiler alert right now. I'm going to have to tell you because I'm making it part of my sermon because it's important for the word. If you haven't seen the movie, I want you to plug your ears right now. Plug your ears. In fact, if you read lips, I'm going to turn my back to you so you can't read the lips. But they die in the end, okay? They die in the end. Now, Bonnie and Clyde. Y'all know about Bonnie and Clyde, right? Yeah. What happened to Bonnie and Clyde at the end? They died. Thelma and Louise. Y'all know about Thelma and Louise? They got killed. Wisdom. With, help me out, Jeff. You're good at movies. Who started Wisdom? Was it Lou Diamond Phillips? No. Wisdom. The movie Wisdom. He played in Loaded Gun. Emilio Estevez. I knew that's my movie guy. What happens at the end of Wisdom? He dies.
He bit the big one too.
What happened?
He bit the big one.
He bit the big one. But they fixed it at the very end. They had him wake up in a tub, so it seemed like a dream, but he was actually, we know he died. The studio just decided we can't have it end that morbidly. But it never ends well. In the movie, Queen and Slim are the characters. They're on the run. They have to make a decision about their hair. Because every law enforcement agency on the planet is looking for them because they killed a cop. They don't want to cut their hair. They come to her uncle's house, to Queen's uncle's house, and they decide if we do not cut our hair, they're going to kill us or throw us in jail for the rest of our lives. So what do Queen and Slim decide to do?
Cut their hair.
That's right. They decide to cut it off and keep it moving. They said, let's cut it. Queen cuts her hair, long, beautiful hair. She does a shortcut similar to Pastor Rain's. And she looks more beautiful with that short hair. And it wasn't just the hair, it was symbolic. In cutting his and her hair, both of them, they cut off their past. Something were carried with them that was holding them down. In my last sermon about Samson, we talked about how he lost his power when his hair got cut. In Queen and Slim, they gained their freedom when their hair got cut. They were still vigilantes. They're still running from the law, but they were able to live. They moved forward into something that they'd never experienced before, which helped them fall in love with each other. Now, when we're watching this all unfold on the screen, it's super dramatic because they're running from the cops. There is a love scene. I'm in the theater. Again, I had just come from this beautiful night at Rain's house. I've got church folk with me. I've got Rain. I got some people, church folk from out of town, some good friends that came to visit us. And then I've got number one riding shotgun. He's usually always with me. He's not here today, but Adrian, number one, y'all seen him. He works or serves our church. He's sitting right next to me. And on my left, I've got a white lady that's sitting next to me. And for some reason, every time something happened to the black couple in the movie, the lady would look over at me. And I'm sitting, we're reclining. This is Sunset Station. We're reclining. And I see her look. You know, you can feel somebody looking. And I'm like, well, hello, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Anytime anything happened to them, to the black couple, she would just, and I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, does she want, what does she want from me? I'm like, ma'am, I have no idea why you keep looking at me. This is a movie. Like, I'm not in the movie. I can't justify anything that's happening right now. So they're on the run. Number one's on my right, got the white lady on my left. And there is a love scene in the movie. Now, the love scene was bad. And I don't mean the bad that I've been using in my other sermons. This was just bad. Not good, just bad and graphic and long. It was a long, graphic love scene where nothing was held down. It was real extreme in a car on the side of the road. And I'm sitting there. And the lady to my left, the white lady, does not look over at me this time. For whatever reason, she's focused. She's enjoying the show. She's focused on this love scene. She would not look away. I'm waiting for her to look because it's already awkward. And I'm not feeling any awkwardness at all. At least not for myself. I'm feeling awkwardness for the young man sitting to my right. You've got a 17-year-old number one here, and he's sitting next to his pastor. And 4 seats over is his other pastor, who happens to be his mom. Right? So you got his mama sitting 4 seats over watching this big screen awkward love scene that lasted forever. You got your pastor and mentor sitting next to you, and you got the white lady who won't look away from the screen. This young man might be traumatized. That might be why he's not here today. Can you keep him in prayer? Please, congregation, pray for him, because I was like, oh my God. So I'm laughing out hysterically because of him. I'm laughing because of him because he's just sitting there like this is the worst possible situation. But that's neither here nor there. It was just completely awkward. But they kept on going. What's awesome about the movie is they kept on going. They could have stopped and turned themselves in, which probably would have been the right thing to do. They could have gave up, or they could have held on to the reasons why they didn't like each other in the beginning when they were dating. But for whatever reason, when they cut that hair, they moved over into something new. They cut it off, they kept it moving, and they fell in love, you guys. And it was a beautiful story, well acted. If it doesn't win something, it'll be a travesty. Go out there and see it. Like I said, the ones who, it's not about how the movie ends, it's how they live in the movie, which is awesome. Now you say, okay, now they cut it off, they kept it moving. What does that got to do with the Bible or anything Nourish and Vine related? Well, I was reading a story in the Bible called Exodus. And in the story has a man named Moses. And for those that don't know about Moses, Moses was not raised as a Hebrew. He was a Hebrew male. The Hebrew firstborn at that time were getting killed. The Egyptian Pharaoh said, we got to toss them all in the lake, in the river. Because the men, there's too many of them, and they're going to have more men, and they're going to cause trouble for us because there's just too many. So all the firstborns were gone. They were giving all the men. Moses was a firstborn male. But they pushed in a basket down the river. He was received by Pharaoh, Pharaoh's wife, and raised as an Egyptian, even though he was Hebrew. Keep that in mind. Moses was not circumcised. He was raised as an Egyptian. So we're going to get into Exodus. We're going to talk about cutting it out and keeping it moving. All right, we're going to look in on Moses. We're going to go into Exodus. We'll be in Exodus chapter 2. We're going to touch on chapter 4, and then we're going to finish up in Matthew. Again, I'll give you all the verses at the very end if you want them. But let's talk about Moses. This was the original Bonnie and Clyde before he had Bonnie. So if we go to Exodus, let's go to, where do we want to be in chapter 2? Here we go. Yeah, we're going to go Exodus chapter 2. And we'll start in verse 11, go to 15. This is all we need. Verse 11 through 15 is perfect. Chapter 2, verses 11 through 15. It says, one day, after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were and watched them at their hard labor. Now, at this point in his life, Moses knew he was Hebrew. He'd grown up his whole life as an Egyptian, raised by a Pharaoh, next to the soon-to-be the next Pharaoh, the next king. And he finds out he is Hebrew. So he goes out to sea to check on his people. And he sees them hard at labor. It says he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people, looking this way and that, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Meaning, he looked around. Moses looked around, almost like the lady that was sitting next to me in that theater. Every time something bad happened, she looked around. She wanted to make sure I witnessed it too, I guess. Maybe she wanted me to absolve her. I have no idea. But Moses did that to make sure no one could see him do what he was about to do. He killed an Egyptian and buried him in the sand. It says the next day he went out and saw Hebrews fighting, and he asked the one in the wrong, why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew? The man said, who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian? Then Moses was afraid and thought, what I did must be known. When the Pharaoh heard this, he tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian, where he sat down by a well. Now, Moses thought he got away with that murder. People say, well, wasn't it righteous how he killed him? No, it wasn't. God never ordered it, therefore it wasn't righteous. And that wasn't killing. There's a difference between killing and murder. Right? He murdered that man. When it came to the Hebrews, he asked them why they were fighting. They said, we saw what you did. You have no place to judge us. We've been talking about religion versus contentment for, oh my God, like maybe 2 months now, right? Then Hebrews got real religious, didn't they? How dare you judge us, Moses? You're in no place to judge us. You killed an Egyptian and buried him in the sand, and we saw you do it. Moses figured out, wait a minute, if they know, Pharaoh might know. And then Pharaoh found out and wanted Moses dead. Moses is on the run. He is Clyde without a bunny. He waits by the well for his bunny. He meets a man named Jethro. Right? Jethro was a priest in Midian. Jethro has 7 daughters. One of those daughters is named Zipporah. Zipporah is who Jethro gives to Moses because Moses helps protect his flocks and his sheep. Moses marries Zipporah and they live together for 40 years in Midian. He's not even thinking about the man he just killed and left behind in the sand. Nobody ever thinks about, well, you know what? Moses was able to live that long without even worrying about, did he ever even pay for what he'd done? I wouldn't ask anybody in this room to say they killed somebody. I would not. I'm not going to put you out there like that because I have an obligation. If you didn't report yourself, or you ever turn I got to turn you in. This is how it goes. I told you that in my snitch sermon. I got to snitch. But you've done some bad things. Just because you haven't killed somebody doesn't mean you're absolved of doing bad things. When you do bad things, they follow you. There's a reason why they say you're running. You're running because something's chasing you. Sometimes it's God using that bad thing to make you run towards him. In this particular case, it was. But God never ordered that murder. That means Moses probably for 40 years, if no one else saw the face of that Egyptian he killed, Moses did. For 40 years, imagine being in a strange land, chased by somebody you were raised as a brother, to be your brother in Egypt. And seeing the face of the man you killed, who you shouldn't have killed, he had no reason to die, unrighteously killed, and buried in the sand for 40 years. It will haunt you. There's people that stole stuff when they were 11 years old, and it still haunts them to this day. Gosh, I wish I could go give it back. There's people who've done things when they were 10 that they can't change. When you were 15, 20, 30 years old that you can't go back on. It haunts you to this day. You know, some things haunt you a lot, they chase you a lot faster than other things. But that's another sermon. My thing is this. Moses had to live with the fact that he took a man away from his family. That Egyptian he killed, no one ever talks about him in the sermon. He might have had a family. Whether he did or he didn't, he won't have a chance to now because he is dead unrighteously by the hand of Moses. How do these stories end? We talked about this in the beginning, right? They never end well. I'm not worried about how it ends for Moses. He already set his fate. I know he's going to die because his stories always end that way. I'm worried about how Moses is going to live. He finds God in a bush. 40 years later, God says, go back to my people. Tell Pharaoh to let my people go. Moses says, I can't do it. God says, you have to do it. Right? Because I know what you did. I know what you did, and you know what you did. You got to do this. Moses said, you know what? I guess I do got to do this. Send Aaron, because I stutter. I want you to send Aaron with me to speak, and I stutter, and I will go back and get this done. So he goes back. He gets his family. He knows. In fact, no, I'm not even going to tell you. Let's read it to you. Let's go to Exodus chapter 4. We're going to go to Exodus chapter 4 right now, and I'm just going to read it to you. Well, I tell you when I can read it. Chapter 4, we're going to start in verses 18. We're going to go to 26. Chapter 4, verse 18 to 26 says, Then Moses went back to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, Let me return to my own people in Egypt to see if any of them are still alive. Jethro said, Go, and I wish you well. Now the Lord has said to Moses in Midian, Go back to Egypt, for all those who wanted to kill you are dead, meaning there's no more harm. But that was not completely the case. Not completely the case. So Moses took his wife and sons, put them on a donkey, and started back to Egypt. And he took the staff of God in his hand. The Lord said to Moses, when you return to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the wonders I have given you the power to do. But I will harden his heart so that he will not let the people go. Then say to Pharaoh, this is what the Lord says. Israel is my firstborn son. And I told you, let my son go so he may worship me. But you refuse to let him go, so I will kill your firstborn son at the lodge, so I will kill your firstborn son. Before we move ahead, God gave him his orders. He got his marching orders. He knows exactly what to do. In Moses' mind, his heart, he's just following God. He knows it's not going to erase what he did to that Egyptian, but at least he can make some things right by following the one true God. Here's the issue. God just gave the decree. He said, Pharaoh's not going to kill you, right? God keeps his word. Does that mean Moses isn't going to die in Egypt? God never said that, did he? I'm going to show you in the very next section of this word. He keeps his promise. He said that the firstborns would die. Firstborns of Egypt. Was Moses circumcised?
No.
Right? Had he ever made the covenant with God? This was prior to Jesus Christ. This was prior to Christ dying and being our covenant to God. This was when you had to be circumcised if you were a true Hebrew. Moses was going back as a son of Egypt, not as a son of Israel. Even though he was working for God, what did that mean by God's word? That meant that Moses, being the first son of Egypt, would have had to die, right? Very first, the next line, it says, at a lodging place on the way, the Lord met Moses and was about to kill him. What? At a lodging place on the way, the Lord met Moses and was about to kill him. Well, it wouldn't be Pharaoh killing him. Why would the Lord want to kill Moses after he put him out there to do all these great things? Maybe because he wasn't part of the covenant. Moses was about to go and try to do God's work without that cover, without that authority. He had a staff. And the staff had zero power until he had that authority and that covering. So God's ready to kill Moses. Everybody's like, wait a minute, I don't remember reading that part. It's in there. It's actually verse 24. It says, but Zipporah, a.k.a. Bunny, took a flint knife, cut off her son's foreskin, touched Moses' feet with it. Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me, she said, so that the Lord let him alone. At that time, she said bridegroom of blood, referring to the circumcision, meaning she took her sons. Moses had 2 sons. She cut off their foreskin, she put it on his feet, and she basically said, now he's one of yours, Lord. That woman covered him. The same way Bunny covered Clyde and Zipporah rode for her husband to make sure he was coming back. It never says Moses cut off his own foreskin, none of that. She covered her man. You know what she did? She cut it off, and she kept it moving. Zipporah, a.k.a. Bunny, saved Moses' life that day. Moses would bring those people out of bondage in Egypt, put them in the desert for 40 years where he'd cry out to God and say, these are your people, do something with them. We know how his story ends. No, he doesn't make it to the promised land. Not at all. But Moses, he doesn't care about that. He's not worried about that. This man has had to live for 80 plus years now. 40 years of it running from his past as a fugitive. Another 40 years trying to treat God's people in a way that God would treat them when they're not godly people. All they do is complain about everything. Meanwhile, he has his family who's riding for him, Jethro who's riding for him, and his wife Zipporah. But he knows none of them can cross over to the promised land that was promised. They're all going to die. Moses wasn't worried about any of it because he knew what he had. He had something greater on the other side. It's not about death. We're all going to die. We're all one way or another. Either it's a bad way or a good way, but death is coming no matter what. So if you're running from death, you might as well just stop now. It's pointless. I want you to, if you're running from death, cut it off and keep it moving. Right? Moses was worried about life. He knew that the only way to renew himself was through God coming back and pulling him away from the life that he's been 80 years focused and based on. So Moses wanted to live. In his death in that desert, Moses got to live. He actually pops up. He makes a couple guest appearances later on in the Bible, which is kind of awesome for a dead guy, right? It's about life, not death. The reason why we enjoyed that movie so much is because that movie was them trying to stay alive. They weren't focused on death. They were focused on living. The reason why I enjoy Moses' story, even though it's so hilarious, all that stuff that happens to him, is because at some point he figured out it's not about the man I killed. It's about me dying to myself and living again, being reborn, because that did not work. I failed. I have sinned. I have failed. This works for eternity. Moses figured it out by listening and obeying that bush. Obedience. Silo said it last week. God wants your obedience, not your sacrifice. So when we talk about religion, when we talk about, you got to do it this way. If you don't, you're going to hell. When we talk about, I will be your judge today. Every other day, God can be your judge. But today, I'm going to judge you based on something. On your shoes, your shirt, your pants, your breath. How clean your hands are. I'm going to find something to judge you on. Because just once, I want to be the judge. That's religion. When we talk about religion, we're talking about death. Understand that. Religion should be just called 100 Ways to Die. That's all it is. It's saying, if I don't do this, I will die. God is saying your religion isn't enough to keep you alive. Meaning even after you die, your religion can't bring you back. You stay dead. You stay dead. He said, I'm a God of the living. Therefore, I am the only judge. There is no religion. There was an article that somebody brought me up here. Lisa's right here somewhere. Where the Pope said that all religions have the same God. Well, he's half right. There's only one God. right? But religion is the opposite of God. Who do you think killed God? Who do you think killed Jesus? Religion was the thing that killed him. God is life, religion is death. That's why I told you guys, stop being religious. Don't fall into that seat of religion. Jesus had to deal with it with his disciples, and we're going to touch one more scripture, and I want you guys to take this with you because today's sermon, I want to set you free. I have no idea what you did. I know what I've done, but I want to set you free, right? I want to set you free. So let's go to Matthew chapter 15. This will be our last scripture for the day. Matthew chapter 15. Matthew chapter 15. And we are going to go, let me see. We're just going to start from verse 1. We'll go verse 1 through 9. This is all I need. Matthew chapter 15. It says, Then some Pharisees and teachers of the law came to Jesus from Jerusalem and asked, Why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? They don't wash their hands before they eat. Jesus replied, And why do you break the command of God for the sake of your tradition? What is religion? It's just tradition to get to heaven, right? For God said, Honor your father and mother, and anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. But you say that if anyone declares that what might have been used to help father or mother is devoted to God, they are not to honor their father and mother with it, meaning the food. Thus you nullify the word of God for the sake of your tradition. You hypocrites, Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. He's talking about the religious folks of the time. They honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules. What's religion? Religion is human rules. That's us saying we're going to be the judge. We're going to change things up. Because God's rules, we can't keep them, so we're going to make our own. That's what religion is. What goes into their mouth does not defile them. What goes into someone's mouth does not defile them. The disciples came to him and asked, Do you know that the Pharisees were offended by what you said? He replied, Every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be pulled up by its roots. Leave them. They are blind. They are blind guides. If the blind lead the blind, both will fall into a pit. Peter said, Explain the parable to us. Good old Peter, always got something to say, right? Are you so dull? Jesus asked Peter. He asked them, Don't you see that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then out the body? But the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them. For out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, and slander. These are what defile a person, but eating with unwashed hands does not defile a man. You see what we did? We tried to make it seem like, or the Pharisees, I won't say we, tried to make it seem like because they weren't washing their hands, that they weren't going to get to heaven. How dare they be a part of our religion if they don't wash their hands, they can't get to heaven. Jesus is saying it's not what you're going to put in your body, all those germs and bacteria on your hand. That's not what's going to keep you out of heaven. It's what comes out of your heart. And the mouth projects that thing that comes out of your heart. Everything he named, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, and slander, was in that movie we watched the other day. Everything we named was in the movie. Understand, I know walking out of it, I was like, do I put this in a sermon? Is my congregation going to see me in a different kind of way? Because I went and sat through this movie and I watched for 2 hours plus everything that Jesus just preached on. And I was religious for 2 seconds. Because I was like, you know what? I have to put it in the sermon. Because understand, I didn't write the movie. I didn't do any of that stuff. That was a movie. That was entertainment. It was on the screen. I paid my money, and it was done. I can't unsee what I've seen. I didn't write it. I didn't produce it. I didn't direct it. And I didn't act in it because I'm not that great of an actor. They did a great job. I'm using religion to justify going to see a movie and keeping it out of a sermon when I know it literally rounds out the sermon because I'm no different. I loved it. It was a good movie. I'd watch it again. I am none of those things. I'm a child of God. I am not religious. I'm in a relationship with Jesus Christ that says I am free. I'm not running. I'm not running from what I do when I'm outside of this room. You ain't got to worry about seeing those scandals from Pastor Randy on any social media. I don't need to run. I've got Jesus Christ. If I did it, I'm sorry. I'm apologizing up front. I am sorry, but I will not run from something I can't fix or change. Amen. Right? I am going to cut it off. I'm going to keep it moving. Freedom is when you make a decision. When you say, no longer will I be held captive by something I did, like Moses did. and say, from now on, I'm moving towards God. I'm going to keep it moving. However that bush or however God comes to you says, go this way, that's the way you go. Cut that hair off and walk in here like Pastor Ray. I think right after we saw the movie, she came back, her hair was cut. Look at that. Look at how big the smile is now, right? Cut it off, yo. I don't want everybody to come to church bald next week. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's something you've held on to, and you can't be free until you figure this part out. You are Bonnie and Clyde. You are guilty, and you are going to die at the end of this movie. I'm getting spoiler alert. You're going to die. Amen. Either it'll be bad or it'll be good, but death is coming no matter what. Why run from it? Run to life. Enjoy every day of your life. Yes. Enjoy every day. Be like Moses, knowing he wasn't going to see the promised land. Say, I'm fine with it. As long as I got you in everlasting life when I say good night, the long good night. Yes. Leave this room, you guys. Yeah, Randy gave a great sermon. It was okay. Movie, I might go see it. But leave this room knowing, you know what? There is something I've held on to for way too long. And I'm not leaving. I'm leaving that in 2019. Matter of fact, I'm leaving it in this room right now. Yeah. Let it go. Yeah. Let it go. Cut it off. Keep it moving. When that movie cut off, we kept it moving. We got out of there. I didn't sit there and bask. Right? I don't go back and... No, it's done. It's over with. And that's my gift. Since we won't be here for Christmas Day, Merry Christmas. My gift to you is freedom. Thank you. Let it go. Let it go. Be ready for the Pharisees. Understand, Jesus had to deal with them. Right? Because his people didn't wash their hands. And they might be your family. I'm throwing it out there. They might come through your family. That's fine. That has nothing to do with you cutting that stuff off and moving on. They can stay back there with the mess. Say, here, hold my hair for me. I don't need it anymore. Unlike Samson, who needed his hair, he said, I don't need it anymore. Let that stuff go, y'all. Cut it off. Keep it moving. Amen? Amen. Amen. Let's pray.